So this is the continuation of our topic, and this is let's move on to the principles of good practice in assessing learning outcomes. So first is the assessment of student learn starts with the institution's vision, mission, and core values. So there should be a clear statement on the kinds of learning that the institution values most for its students. So here, this means that assessment should follow the school's vision and mission. So meaning ani is ang assessment dapat is naka-align sa goals sa schools kung unsa ang gusto nilang ma-achieve or ma-learn sa students. Like for example, if ang eskwelahan is ganahan nga ang mga estudyante kanang maayo mubasa, so the teacher can give reading activities or kanang reading tests. Second is the assessment works best when the program has clear statement of objectives aligned with the institutional vision, mission, and core values. Such alignment ensures clear, shared, and implementable objectives. Like the program should have clear objectives. So this means klaro unsa ang dapat nga ma-learn sa students. Like for example, ang objective sa teacher is the students will be able to write paragraph. So, kabalo ang teacher ug unsa ang target sa lesson. So, kabalo ang student ug ang teacher kung unsa ang target sa lesson. The third one is the outcome-based assessment. Focuses on the students' activities that will still be relevant after formal schooling concludes. The approach is to design assessment activities which are observable and less abstract, such as to determine the student's ability to write a paragraph, which is more observable than to determine the student's verbal ability. So here, it means it is focused on useful skills, like assessment should measure skills nga magamit sa students even after school. Like for example, student learn how to write a letter, like kanang mga play sila o work, or kanang basa og kanang mga simple instructions, or kanang mag-solve og mga problems. Okay, so for the fourth one, assessment requires attention not only to outcome but also and equally to the activities and experiences that lead to the attainment of learning outcomes. So these are supporting student activities. So look at both the result and the process. So the teacher should check not only the final answer but also how students learned it. So like for example, during activity, the teacher can observe kanang og unsa nila kanang pag-achieve or unsa nga collaboration ang ilang gibuhat para kanang ma-achieve na nila nga task. So differ is kanang dili ilang tan-aw na sa kanang final nga output or sa final outcome sa gibuhat sa kanang mga students, but also kung unsa ang process nga ilahang kanang giagian or kanang gibuhat para lang kanang ma-achieve na nga or mahuman na nga task. So the fifth one is the assessment works best when it is continuous, ongoing, and not episodic. So assessment should be cumulative because improvement is best achieved through a linked series of activities done over time in an instructional cycle. So it means that assessment should be continuous. So walay kanang kahumanan. So padayon nyo jud siya. So assessment should happen many times during the lesson, dili lang kanang only sa kanang final exam, but also pwede pod sa kanang quizzes or sa recitations, group activities, and pwede pod sa kanang mga projects. So number 6, begin the assessment by specifying clearly and exactly what you want to assess. What you want to assess is or are stated in your learning outcomes or lessons objectives. So this means that kana clearly know what you want to assess sa mga students. So ang mga teacher should know unsay skill or knowledge nga gusto niya ma-measure sa usa ka students. Like for example, the teacher kanang wants to assess the reading comprehension of the students. Number 7, the intended learning outcome or lesson objective, not content, is the basis of the assessment task. You use content in the development of the assessment tool and task, but it is the attainment of your learning outcome, not content that you want to assess. This is outcome-based teaching and learning. So here, this means that assessment should be based on the learning objectives. So the assessment should check if na-achieve ba sa students ang lesson objectives. So like for example, if kanang the objective is to write a paragraph, so the student should write a paragraph after the lesson. So number 8, set your criterion of success or acceptable standard of success. It is against this established standard that you will interpret your assessment results. So, like for example, is a score of 7 out of 10 the highest possible score kanang acceptable or considered success. So this means that set a clear standard for success. So the teacher should decide unsay passing score or acceptable performance sa students. Like for example, if the highest score is kanang 10, so maybe kanang 7 out of 10 is kanang already considered as passing. Number 9, make use of varied tools for assessment data gathering and multiple sources of assessment data. So it is not pedagogically sound to rely on just one source of data gathered by only one assessment tool. So consider multiple intelligences and learning styles. So DepEd Order number 73, 2012 cites the use of multiple measures as one assessment guideline. So here, it means that use kanang lain-lain nga mga assessment tools. So kanang ang mga teachers kay kanang magamit kanang dapat o kanang mga different ways to assess kan sa ilahang kanang mga students. Like for example, sa quiz, project, kanang oral recitations or group activity, and performance tasks. Number 10, learners must be given feedback about their performance. Feedback must be specific. Good work is a positive feedback and is welcome, but actually is not a very good feedback since it is not specific. So a more specific, better feedback is you observe rules on subject-verb, agreement, and variety of sentences. So 3 of your commas were misplaced. So it means you should give clear feedback sa imuhang mga students. So the teacher should kanang tell students that they did well and what they need to improve. Like for example, mga na ba karon sa imong students nga nag-check ba ka sa ilahang essay nga gibuhat and gingnan ba ni mga students nga you have a good ideas in your paragraph but you need to improve your punctuation, like in ana. For number 11, assessment should be on real-world application and not on out-of-context drills. So it means connect assessment to real-life situations. Like assessment should help students use what they learned in real-life situations. So like for example, sa math, so student kana ang mga estudyante kana pwede maghimo og kanang simple nga budget plan sa usa ka semana nila nga kanang budget. Number 12, emphasize on the assessment of higher order thinking. So here, encourage higher thinking. Students should learn how to analyze, explain, and solve problems. So nag-need ni siya og kanang critical thinking na jud. So like for example, instead of kanang just answering, so students is pwede sila mag-explain kung nganong kana ilang answer or nganong correct ilang answer in ana. So pwede nilang barugan ilahang answer. So for the last is provide opportunities for self-assessment. So here allows self-assessment of students. So students should reflect on their own learning. Like for example, students kanang answer sa mga pangutana like kung kanang unsa ako nakatunan karon or kanang unsa akong need nga i-improve, like in ana.
So, samples of supporting student activities. Student Student learning outcome number 1. Student can organize information from secondary sources as basis of a research topic. Supporting student activities number 1. Practice differentiating source materials and one's opinion. Then number 2, readings, articles, and formulating an original paragraph from quotes, paraphrase, and summaries. Number 3, writing of essays to develop the topic. And number 4, integrating bibliographic entries in appropriate format. So, and student learning number 1 is student organize information from secondary sources for a research topic, and supporting activities include differentiating sources from personal opinions, creating paragraphs using quotes, paraphrase, summaries, and writing essays to develop topics, and integrating proper bibliographic entries. And supporting student activities ay student learning outcome number 2. Student apply principles of logical thinking and persuasive argument in writing. So number 1, forming opinion about the topic. Number 2, researching and writing about a variety of perspective. Number 3, adapting style to the identified audience. Number 4, employing clear argument in writing. So, and student learning outcome number 2 is students apply logical thinking and persuasive argument principles in writing. Supporting activities cover forming topic opinions, researching and addressing multiple perspectives, and adapting writing style to audience and using clear arguments and written work. And student learning outcome number 3, students write multiple page essays complying with standard format and style. Supporting student activities number 1, analyzing and evaluating text. Number 2, writing about a variety of perspectives on single topic. And number 3, adapting tone and style to address one's audience. And number 4, reviewing grammar and essays, format, and readings. And number 5, holding group discussion about various topics. In student learning outcome number 3, says that students write multiple pages essays, complying with standard format and style. It lists 5 supporting student activities and includes a diagram illustrating the alignment between institutional mission, program goals, subject objectives, student learning outcomes, and assessment methods like summative, diagnostic, and formative assessment. And the next is constructive alignment. Constructive alignment. Illustrate the principle of constructive alignment. The principle of constructive alignment simply means that the teaching learning activities or activity and assessment tasks are aligned with the intended learning outcome. The intended learning outcome is to drive a car. The teaching learning activity is driving a car, not giving lectures or car driving. The assessment task is to let the student drive a car, not to describe how to drive a car. So, why the term constructive alignment is based on the constructivist theory. So, constructive alignment referencing Biggs 2007 and its foundation in constructivist theory. The core idea is that teaching learning activities and assessment tasks must match the intended learning outcome. For example, if the goal is to drive a car, activities should involve actual driving, not just lectures. And assessment should require students to drive, not just describe the driving. So, nag-discow ang teacher is ang gi-discuss is pag unsang pag-drive sa car dili ra sa true lectures kundi pa-experience ang kanang bata. Kay og the more may experience kay the more man matiman-an sa bata. Then the term constructive comes from the belief that learners build their own knowledge through active engagement rather than passively receiving information.
So now let's move on to a variety of assessment methods, tools, and tasks. There are two main types of assessment, which are traditional and authentic assessment. First, ang traditional assessment is the usual paper pencil test. Maunang common nga test like multiple choice, matching type, completion, short answer, essay, o problem solving. This type of assessment mainly measure the cognitive domain. So based on Bloom's taxonomy by Benjamin Bloom, meaning it focuses on thinking skills like remembering, understanding, and analyzing. So according to Marzano and Kendall, paper and pencil tests mostly measure declarative knowledge or knowledge about facts and information. For examples, definitions, formulas, and dates. However, dili tanan learning kay ma-measure pinaagi lang sa written exam. For example, if you want to assess dancing, teaching, demonstration, or laboratory skills, kay dili siya sakto nga i-multiple choice lang. That is why we also have authentic and alternative assessment. So, authentic assessment focuses on real-life performance. Examples are projects, portfolios, role-playing, and presentations. This type of assessment measures skills, creativity, and procedural knowledge, or knowledge on how to do something. So in conclusion, both traditional and authentic assessments are important. Traditional tests measure knowledge of facts, while authentic assessment measures skills and real-life application. So in assessment, naatay different ways para makita kung unsay nahibal-an ug nahimo sa students. Dili lang puro written test na product output and performance test. So the first one is product output. So ang product output kay something nga mahimo sa students nga makita na to physically, meaning na siya final output nga mapakita. For example, ana kay graph, collage, or reflected journal. Makita na to diri kung unsaon nila pag-organize sa ilang ideas ug unsa ilang learning about the lesson. So, the second one is performance task. Ang performance task ka activity nga ipakita sa students ilang skills pinaagi sa pag-perform or pag-demonstrate. Examples are experiments, oral presentation, or dramatization. Makita na to diri kung unsa sila ka confident ug unsa nila pag-apply ang lesson. So the next one is this slide categorize different types of assessment under examples. So the first one is selected response type, include alternate response, true or false, yes or no, 4 or 6 options. So matching type and multiple choice. This typically require learners to pick a correct answer from given choices. The second one is constructed response type, cover completion, fill in the blanks, short answer, essay, and problem-solving tasks. This demand learners to create or formulate their own responses rather than selecting from preset options. So the last one is authentic assessment tools, focus on demonstrating learned knowledge through products or performances. Products include reports, papers, research projects, and reviews. Performance involve actions like tango steps, keynote speeches, opening a computer, or demonstration teaching. So now let's move on to selected response type and constructed response type. So first is selected response type. This means the answer is already provided and the student just selects the correct one. Examples are multiple choice, true or false, and matching type. Next is constructed response type. Here, the students create their own answers. Examples are short answers, essay, and problem solving. Mas kinahanglan og critical thinking ani. So, we also have alternative response, which only has two options like true or false. Completion type requires students to fill in the blank. Matching type requires students to match items from two columns. So, example aning matching type is kanang connect the column A and the column B. So, short answer is brief explanation, while essay can be restricted or non-restricted. Restricted essay has limits, while non-restricted allows students to express ideas freely. Lastly, problem solving requires step-by-step reasoning, especially in math. So in conclusion, different types of assessment measure different skills. As a future teachers, we must choose the appropriate test type depending on our learning objectives.
Portfolio falls under non-paper and pencil test. A portfolio is a purposeful collection of student work or documented performance like video of dance that tells the story of student achievements collections. The word purposeful implies that a portfolio is not collections of all students' work. It is not just a receptacle for all students' work. The student's work that is collected depends on the type and purpose of a portfolio you want to have. It can be collections of products or record performances or photos of performances. So a portfolio is a collection of students' work that shows what they have learned and accomplished over time. It may include projects, drawings, essays, report, photos, videos, or other activities done in a class. So the purpose of a portfolio is to show the students' progress, skills, and achievements. It helps teachers and students see how learning improves from the beginning up to the end. So our portfolio is not just a folder of random work. The works included are carefully chosen to show the students' best efforts and development. So the types of portfolio can be classified according to purpose. So according to purpose, portfolios can be classified either as working portfolios, display portfolios, or assessment portfolios. Introduction to using portfolios in the classroom B. Charlotte Donelsons and Leslie Abroten. So first is working or development portfolio. So a working portfolio includes both in progress and completed work, showing projects that are still developing. A development portfolio, also called a growth portfolio, highlights an individual's progress over time in areas like academic skills, content knowledge, or self-awareness. It can also serve as a collection of work to be later selected for a more permanent assessments or display portfolios. So, a working portfolio contains both unfinished and finished work. It shows the process of learning, meaning how the students improve from the first attempt until the final work. So, this type of portfolios helps teacher and students see growth, progress, and development of skills over time. So, example, first draft of an essay and the final improved versions. So, na po ng example ka na practice drawing and the completed work, or early project ideas and the final project. So, next is the display showcase or best work portfolios. It is the display of the students' best work. Students exhibit their best work and interpret its meaning. Showcase portfolio demonstrates the highest level of achievements. attained by the students. So working or development portfolio meaning I don't know no no. So display or showcase best work portfolio. A display or showcase portfolio contains student best work only. So the purpose of this portfolio is to present the highest level of achievements of the student. These works are usually the ones the students is most proud of. Example, best drawing or artwork, or best essay or written report, or best project presentations. So this type is often used for exhibit, presentations, or competitions. Assessment or evaluations portfolio. An assessment portfolio documents a student's learning based on grade level standards and competencies. Students select work that reflects these standards and include reflections on how their entries demonstrate mastery. For example, if writing standards required persuasive, narrative, and descriptive pieces, the portfolio should include all three. If technical skills like using PowerPoint are required, the portfolio show work that demonstrate those skills. So, the assessment or evaluation portfolios and assessment portfolios is used to measure or evaluate the student's learning. The work include are chooses the work include are chosen based on learning standards or skills that students must achieve. So students also reflect on their work and explain what they learn and how they improve. Example, if a subject requires narrative writing, descriptive writing, persuasive writing. So the portfolio should include samples of all the three types. So this helps the teachers see if the students has mastered the required skills. So simply summary of the for students. So the portfolio is to collect collections of students' work showing learning and progress. So the three types of the on the portfolio is a working portfolio, showcase portfolio, and assessment portfolio. So in working portfolio, it shows progress and development, and then showcase portfolio shows the student best work, and the assessment portfolio is used by teacher to evaluate learning.
So let's move on to other examples of scoring rubrics. Adapted from Peter Hernon, Robert Dugan o Patricia Binner. So, gibahin niya ang critical thinking ngadto sa lain-laing task ug gi-evaluate niya ang performance sa students based sa levels not applicable, not evident, beginner, capable, of competence. So, competency is critical thinking. So, mao ni ang main skill nga gi-assist ang rubric kuan siya para makita kung unsa ka maayo ang students nga mag-think critically by performing specific cognitive tasks. So, there are three main cognitive skills. First is remembering, second is applying, third is understanding. So let's talk first about remembering. So mao ni ang pinakaunang level sa cognitive task nga gi-assist, nag-focus sa paghinumdum sa mga information kanang mahinumduman sa mga students ang example ang mga lessons. So letter E, recalls content and details. So makahinumdum sa sulod o makinomdom sa mga content and details. So kanina subtask nag-assist sa ability sa students nga mahinumduman niya specific na informations. So na diri ang not applicable. So kanina column nagpasabot nga specific task or skill nga dili relevant sa assessment. Not evident, So nagpasabot nga walay ebidensya nga ang students nakahimo sa task o nagpakita sa skills. Walay makita nga gihimo sa students. Next is beginner. Recall some content and details but not always accurately. So ang students makainomdom siya o gamay nga information pero dili permi sakto o kompleto. Next is capable, recalls most content and details accurately. Ang students makinomdom siya sa kadaghanan sa information nga masakto gid. Next is competent, recalls all significant content and details accurately. So ang students makahinomdom siya sa tanang information nga makinomdom siya sa mga important information nga sakto gid iyahang pagkasulti. Next is letter B, identifies classification, principles, methodologies, and theories. So kani nga subtask nag-evaluate ni siya sa ability sa students nga muila og mga differentiate sa lain-laing categories nga sa pamaagi sa pag-study og mga abstract nga framework. So naapo diri ang not applicable. So pareha sa akong gisulti nga nagpasabot nga ang specific task or skill dili relevant sa assessment. So next is not evident. Same ra po sa akong gisulti nga walay nagpakita nga evidence nga gibuhat sa students. So next is beginner, identify some classifications, principles, methodologies, and theories. So ang students kahibaw siya moila og mga gagmay nga mga elements. Gamay ra yang nahibaw-an. So next is capable, identifies most classifications, principles, methodologies, and theories. So ang students makahibalo siya mo ila sa mga daghan nga mga elements. Next is competent, identifies significant classifications, principles, methodologies, and theories. So ang students makahibaw siya og mga importance nga mga elements nga mga categories sa mga sakto. Mailahan bitaw niya ang mga importanteng butang nga sakto gid kayo iyang pagkasulti. So next is letter C, restates main ideas, concepts, and principles. So kani nga subtask nagpakita po ni sa ability sa students nga makasulti siya og balik sa mga core thoughts, mga ideas o mga basic rules nga iyang kagalingon ra gyud. So naapod diri not applicable pareha sa akong gisulti nga dili siya relevant sa assessment. Not evident, walay makita nga evidence nga gibuhat sa students. Next is beginner, restates main ideas, concepts, and principles with difficulty. So ang students kay maglisod siya og explain sa mga elements, explain sa mga saktong nga elements. Next is capable, restates main ideas, concepts, and principles with minimal assistance. So ang students makasulti siya og balik sa mga elements pero bisan kanang need makasulti siya og gamay nga elements pero need gyapon niya og tabang. Next is competent, who states main ideas, concepts, and principles clearly and accurately. So ang students makasulti siya og balik sa mga elements nga sakto na gid kaayo ang iyahang pagkahatag or pagkasulti. So kaniyang rubrics naghatag og organized nga pamaagi sa pag-evaluate sa critical thinking skills, pinaagi sa pagbahin sa mga kanang makita bitaw og masukod ang pamatasan sa lain-laing sa mga kahanas. So second, let's move on to understanding. So kani nga level sa cognitive task nag-assist sa ability sa students nga makasabot gid siya sa mga lessons or information nga gihatag. Kanang dali ra niya masabtan. So first, letter A explains ideas, concepts, and principles. So kani po nga subtask nag-evaluate ni siya sa ability sa students nga ipasabot ang mga main points. So naapod siya not applicable, walay makita nga dili siya relevant nga gi-assist. Next is not evident, walay makita nga gibuhat sa students. Beginner explains ideas, concepts, and principles with limited accuracy and irrelevant examples. So ang students nagpakita sa mga ideas, concept o prinsipyo pero dili kay sakto ang iyang explanation og iyang mga examples bisan ang iyang mga examples kay dili connect or irrelevant. Next is capable, explains ideas, concept, and principles with some accuracy and relevant examples. So ang students nagpakita sa mga ideas, concept o principles nga medyo sakto ang iyang explanation og iyang mga examples ideas, concepts, and principles. So kani nga subtask nag-assist pud sa ability sa students nga ibutang sa information nga sakto kaayo ang setting o situation. So naa siya not applicable, dili relevant sa assist nga, not evident, walay makita nga gibuhat sa students. Next is beginner, contextualizes ideas, concepts, and principles with difficulty. So ang students naglisod sa pagbutang sa mga idea, concepts, o principles sa sakto nga context. Naglisod siya og pagpangita og connection sa tinuod nga situations. Next is capable, contextualizes ideas, concepts, and principles with minimal difficulty. So ang students kay makabutang siya sa mga ideas, concepts, o principles sa sakto nga context nga kanang dili kayo siya maglisod. Next is competent, contextualizes ideas, concepts, and principles with ease. So ang students kay makabutang siya sa mga ideas, concepts, o mga principles sa sakto pod nga context kanang dali ra kayo para niya. So letter C demonstrates awareness. So kani po na subtask nag-evaluate po ni sa level sa na makasabot ang student sa usa ka topic. So naa siya not applicable, dili siya irrelevant sa assessment, not evident, walay makita nga gibuhat sa students. Beginner demonstrates minimal awareness of the depth and breadth of one's knowledge. So ang students kanang nagpakita siya og gamay nga kibalo bitaw siya o ganang kibalo siya nga sa iyang kaugalingon ra. Kanang gamay ra iyang naibaw-an kung unsa pang angay niyang makatunan. Next is capable demonstrates some awareness of the depth and breadth of one's knowledge. So ang students, nagpakita siya o kanang gamay ra niya nga naibaw-an kanang angay pa bitaw niya makatunan. So next is competent demonstrates a clear awareness of the depth and breadth of one's knowledge. So ang students kanang next is letter D, anticipates consequences. So kanina sa task, nag-assist po niya sa ability sa students na makatagna siya sa mga possible results. So na siya not applicable or not evident. So beginner anticipates consequences of principles and concepts with little accuracy. So ang students kay na makatagna bitaw siya sa mga possibles na results sa mga principles o concepts pero dili kayo sakto ang iyang pagtubag. Next is capable, anticipates consequences of principles and concepts with some accuracy. So ang students makatagna siya sa mga possible results sa mga principles o concept na medyo sakto ang iyang tubag. Next is competent, anticipates consequences of principles and concepts with accuracy. So ang students makatagna siya sa mga possible results sa mga principles o concepts na sakto ang iyang pagsulti. So the last is applying. So kaning nga level sa cognitive task, nag-assist po ni siya sa ability sa students na gamiton ang kahibalo sa bagong sitwasyon. So letter A, applies knowledge. So kaning nga sa task, nag-evaluate ni sa mga abilities sa students nga gamiton ang ilahang nakatunan. Na siya not applicable, dili siya relevant sa assessment, not evident, walay makita na gibuhat sa students. Beginner applies knowledge with little consistency or accuracy. So ang students maka-apply siya sa iyang naibawan pero dili permi consistent or dili kay sakto. Next is capable, applies knowledge with consistency and accuracy. So ang students maka-apply siya sa iyang naibawan nga medyo consistency. Next is competent, applies knowledge with consistency and accuracy. So ang students ma-apply niya ang iyang naibawan nga permit consistent.
Now, let's tackle about scoring rubric. So, a rubric is a set of criteria that describes levels of performance quality for students' work used to assess both process and products. So, a scoring rubric is a tool used by teachers to evaluate students' work based on clear criteria, levels of performance. Instead giving just one numerical score, a rubric explain why student got that score. So, ang main purpose is kanang to assess performance seen in person, processes, and products. So, meaning, gi-evaluate dili lang ang final output, but also how to student did the task. So, naay two type of kanang rubric which is analytical and holistic. So ang analytical is kanang each kanang criterion is scored separately. So example kay kanang content, organization, nya creativity. So kana siya mauna na siya ang overall. So kanang detail gani siya. Nya kuan siya good for formative assessment kanang para mahibaw-an sa kanang student unsay kanang iyang strength and kanang weaknesses. So ang holistic sad kay kanang rubric, ang holistic rubric kay kanang parehas rag kanang levels ba kay nagyapon siya kanang creativity, ordinary o limitative. So all criteria are kanang evaluated together, kanang overall kanang score are kanang ihata gani mao ra gyap kakuha na maghapon tanang kanang kuan sa kanang pangan rubric di ba kailan ta na kay di man jud na mahimo, di man jud ta kahimo og kana ay makahimo ta but mas nindot man jud og nay guide. So next is night table. So ang table kay mao na siyang example. First example is depth and quality of ideas. So ang naa diri sa depth and quality of ideas kay ang sa very creative kay lalo mo kanang daghang klase nga kanang important ideas gikan sa kanang lain-lain nga subject gani or situation, dili ira sa kanang isa ka angle. Nya ang sa creative kay naay important ideas gikan sa kanang lain-laing area pero dili kayo lalom o kanang dili gani wide pareha sa kanang very creative. Nya ang kining ordinary or kining routine kay important gihapon ang idea pero gikan ra sa kanang parehas nga topic or kanang subject, kanang limited ra gani ang kanang perspective. So ang initiative kay dili strong, kanang dili gani isog ang kanang ideas, dili kanang wala siya kanang meaningful ba. And next is variety of sources. So ang kining variety of sources ang sa very creative ani kay daghang gigamit nga kanang sources like kanang books, internet, interviews, personal experiences. Nya ang kining creative kay naay kanang several sources like kanang pero dili gani kayo kanang wide gani. Nya ang ordinary or routine is kanang gamay ra ang sources nga kanang gigamit ba. Nya ang kanang initiative kay kanang isa ra ang sources or kanang gi-copy paste ra gani. Dili kanang reliable. So third is organization and combination of ideas. So ang kining organization and combinations of ideas ang naa ni kay ang sa very creative kay kanang gi-combine ang ideas in unique kanang og surprising way, kanang naa gani innovation. Nya ang sa creative naay kanang originality pero dili kayo kanang surprising, kanang dili gani kayo makakuan yun staw. Nya ang kanang ordinary or routine gisunod ra ang kanang pattern sa source, kanang dili original. Nya ang initiative kay gi-copy ra gyud, walay kaugalingon ba, kanang wala gani sila kanang sa iyaha gyud, dili gyud kanang iyaha nga hinimo. So that's all.
So today I will discuss the assessment of learning outcome in the K-12 program based on DepEd Order number 8 series of 2015. So first is teachers should use the assessment methods that are aligned with the standards and competencies in the K-12 curriculum guide. So competency, guys, means the skill, knowledge, and the ability that students are expected to learn and show after a lesson. Then assessment, it is the process of measuring what students know, understand, and can do. So for example, if the competency is the students can write a simple paragraph, so the assessment should ask students to write a paragraph. Kay ang giingon man assessment kay measuring what students know, understand, and can do. So unsay mahimo sa kanang students nga nag-align gyapon sa competency. So it should not only ask them to answer multiple choice questions about paragraph. So this is to make sure that assessment kay match gyapon are aligned sa competencies. So second is teachers should use both formative and summative assessment. So ang kanang formative mao tong
during the discussion and summative kay after. So for example, sa formative kaya the teacher can ask questions, give short quiz, or let students do a short activity. So this helps the teachers to know if ang students nakasabot silang lesson. So next is the summative assessment is done at the end of the lesson. So again, formative during the assessment and summative assessments done at the end of the lesson. So for example, giving a long test, project, or kanang final exam to measure what students have learned during your discussion. And third, grades come from written work, performance task, and quarterly tests. So written works example includes guys kay kanang mga quizzes, worksheets, and assignments kay both pasabot sa kaning ikatulo kay ang grado ko no kay magikan sa mga written works, performance task, and quarterly test. And performance task example kay includes anang mga role play, kanang oral presentation or kanang project baron or kanang making experiment ingana. And quarterly task example includes kanang medical exam kanang na at the end of the quarter. And performance tasks are important because students can show what they can do. And fourth is the teachers should consider different levels of thinking when making assessment tasks. So the first is the remembering. So for example lang is kanang about sa plants. So ang teachers kay di consider the different levels of thinking if maghimo sila og assessment task. So first is the remembering. So for example, ang akong example ani kanang about sa plants baron sa science. So first is remembering man. So you need to kanang pa-identify sa parts of the plant. So identify the parts of the plant ingnon mga student ana. And second is the understanding. So remember, ang first is remembering. So you need to identify ipa-identify mo to is i-remember kanang unaw-naon din na sa kanang mga students ilang i-identify gani kung sa mga parts sa plants ana. And second is understanding. So imong ipa-explain nila ang function sa each part sa plant. So first is na-identify nila ang mga parts sa plants, that is the first thinking skills, the remembering, and second is the understanding. So imo ipa-explain nila kay nakahibaw naman sila unsay kanang mga parts sa plants. And ari sa understanding kay imong ipa-explain nila ang mga function sa plants. And third is applying. So example, you kanang imong ingon sa show how plants grow by planting a seed. So imong kuan sila gani kung kanang kanang mo ipakita nimo ba if how plants grow by planting a seed, imong apply sa ilaha, ipa-apply mo sa ilaha sa kanang ilang kaugalingon gyud nga kanang maka kuan sila nga ay nga ani ang plants if kanang itanong siya by seeds lang ana. Then fourth is analyzing. So example is ipa-compare nimo ang plants nga kanang nagdako bitaw sa kanang sunlight and without sunlight. So ilang ma-analyze sa students nga ingani ang kanang ang pagdako sa plants without sunlight o kanang ingani pod ang pagdako sa plants nga without sunlight, wala ay exposed sa sunlight. And fifth is evaluating. So evaluating example is give your opinion on how to take care of plants. So i-evaluate nimo imo nang tagaan help feedback. Like kanang imo taga opinion how to take care of plants properly. And sixth is creating. And the example na niya create imo nang ipatask sa bata nga create a poster about the importance sa plants. So in conclusion guys, kay assessment in the K-12 program should match the competencies used for formative and summative assessment, come from different sources, and develop the students' thinking skills.